I can tell the time on an analog clock to the nearest 5 minutes. Hello Year 3, hope you're all doing wonderfully well. Welcome to week 4 of term 5. This is the second week in which we're going to be looking at time in our maths learning. Now, if for any reason you missed any of the work from last week, you'd be better off going there before you start on this week's work, because there's really important lessons that Mrs. Herbert delivered, especially on Wednesday and Thursday of last week, which build towards the learning we're doing this week. All the maths we do has real-world applications, but you could argue that perhaps time has the biggest impact on our daily lives. You know, we're always asking, how long does a film last, or what time do I have to be there? How late am I for school? That kind of thing. So it's a really good life skill, a really good math skill to get on top of if you can. Today, our LO is to tell the time on an analog clock, one that looks like this perhaps, or maybe like my watch, like this. Tell the time to the nearest 5 minutes, and we're going to be focusing on this half of the clock today. And in fact, before we start, maybe we'll do a little bit of a recap of a very quick blast through the things that you learned on Wednesday and Thursday last week with Mrs. Herbert. So here's my teaching clock, and you learnt on Wednesday that when the minute hand, the big hand, is pointing up to 12 and the hour hand is pointing at an hour, then that's o'clock. And in this case, the minute hand is pointing to 12, the hour hand to 1. It's 1 o'clock. You also learnt that when the minute hand is pointing down at 6, then it's half past an hour. And on this occasion, because the hour hand has gone past 1, it's half past 1. Then after that, you learnt that when the minute hand points all the way over here to the 3, it's quarter past an hour. And in this case, the hour hand has gone past 2, so it's quarter past 2. And you learnt that when the minute hand points to 9, that's a quarter to the next hour. And in this case, the hour hand is going 2 towards 3, so it's quarter to 3. In fact, it might be helpful if I annotate this clock now. Don't tell anybody that I did this. If I draw on here, I can write past on this side of the clock and 2 on this side of the clock. And this is something you learnt with Mrs. Herbert. This refers to the minute hand. If the minute hand is on this half of the clock, then we say it's something past an hour, and if it's on this half of the clock, we say it's going to the next hour. Now on Thursday of last week, Mrs. Herbert started to show you, to tell or help you tell the time to the nearest 5 minutes. So you know that these big numbers are increments of 5 for the minutes. You could, if you wanted to, count all the tiny little increments along the edge. That might take a while, so we can just go 5, 10, 15, 20. So if I put it here, we can see that's 5 minutes past, and the hour hand has gone past 4, so it's 5 past 4. That brings us up to today's learning. I'm just going to skip to the next slide and walk you through it. Okay, so here we have a clock which is showing us a certain amount of minutes to the next hour. Now before we start looking at some clocks, I just want to show you a couple of teaching aids. Last week Mrs. Herbert showed you this one up here. If I can just get my little pointer out. This is what she showed you last week. I'm going to introduce you to this one down here this week, because it might help tell us the time to the next hour. So, you don't need this clock on this side, but it might be helpful. So if we're going to look at the minute hand first, and I'd encourage you to look at the minute hand first this week, because that's how we say the time on an analog clock. We say a certain number of minutes past the hour, or certain minutes to the next hour. So here, if we look at the minute hand, it's pointing at 8. Now there are two ways you could do this. You could count from the minute hand to 12, because we know when it gets to 12 it's the next hour, or you could count backwards from 12 to the minute hand. Either way would work fine, but I'm going to encourage you to start at 12 and count backwards to the minute hand, and it'll become clear why tomorrow. So let's start at 12. Now we know these big numbers are increments of 5 when it comes to the minutes, because those are those little increments. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's 5, 10, 15, 20 until I get to that minute hand. So it's 20 minutes, and because it's on this half of the clock, it's 20 minutes to the next hour. Now we need to look at the hour hand to see what the next hour is. And we can see that the hour hand, because it goes in this direction, is going towards 10. So the time is 20 minutes to 10 o'clock. Or you might hear people say 20 minutes to 10. Let's have a look at another example. So once again, the minute hand is pointing at 8. I'm going to start on 12 and count to the minute hand. 5, 10, 15, 20. So once again it's 20 minutes to an hour. And if we look over here, the hour hand has gone past 2 and it's going towards 3. It's 20 minutes to 3 o'clock. If you wanted to use this visual aid over here, and this is just for the minute hand, we can see the minute hand is pointing to 8, and it tells us here that it's 20 minutes, and it also says 2. Now I've taken that little visual aid away because I don't think we need it anymore. If we have a look at this one, we look at the minute hand first. I'm going to count backwards from 12. 5, 10. 10 minutes to the next hour. And if we look at the hour hand, it's gone past 4 and it's going towards 5. So it's 10 to 5. One last example. The minute hand is pointing at 11. I'm going to start on 12 and count backwards to it. 5. Very simply just 5. 5 minutes to the next hour. And the hour hand is going towards 8. It's almost there, so it's 5 to 8. It's almost 8 o'clock. In 5 minutes, it will be 8 o'clock. Here's what your do it looks like today. I've taken away question 1, and I've put that little visual aid there for you, if it helps. So you can start on question 2, and you simply need to do what I have just done. You need to count back from 12 to the minute hand to find out how many minutes to the next hour is, and then you would write, for example, on here 10 minutes to, and whatever the next hour is. Good luck, and check back in with you tomorrow.